Greetings. Welcome to QueenElle LLC. I'm Queen Elle. Thank you so much for joining me today. So this video is the start of my Tarot 101 series, and this is regarding the history of tarot. So I thought this would be a great place to start this series, just to start from the beginning, really the earliest documented history that one can find regarding tarot. So first, the word tarot. Some pronounce it tarot, tarot. It's most widely recognized as tarot. Tarot is a form of divination that involves using cards known as tarot cards. There are also oracle cards. Some people use traditional playing cards. That is the earliest form of divination with cards that has been documented is with playing cards, or also known as cartomancy. So tarot, the beginnings start, depending on who you ask, they start either in Italy or also in Egypt. So the earliest known tarot in Italy, it starts off with a card game known as Trionfi. Now, Trionfi was just known as a card game, just playing cards with others. And the earliest known Trionfi games, let's see, I'm checking my notes, which is also known as triumphs. That is in 15th century Italy or the 1400s. So the word tarot is a French word. It's also known as tarocchi in Italy, and also tarot or tarot in German. Now, the rules of the original game, they were seen in a manuscript by a Marciano de Tortona, and that was written before 1425. So very early beginnings. Again, this is Trionfi, and this is the card game for tarot cards. So historically, tarot cards were not necessarily used for divination practices, but more so as a game of playing cards. Now, more detailed rules for this playing card game appeared by Abbe de Morales in 1637. So let's move on to cartomancy, which is specifically divination with cards, and this is where tarot is more widely recognized today. So after playing cards were introduced throughout Europe in the 14th century, tarot cards made a presence related to cartomancy in 18th century France. So that would be the 1700s. Now, Antoine Court de Gébelin, he's a French clergyman, and he wrote about symbolism within tarot or tarot in an article in 1781. He spoke of the origin having an Egyptian theology. So that was the first written mention of the origins being Egyptian rather than Italian. And from the research I've done, it seems like the playing cards that were tarot cards, that those may have originated in Italy, but and there are some who will say that it's more of a gypsy origin that started the divination method for tarot cards that they have today, but others, especially centuries ago, they cited Egypt as the source for the divination method. So the first tarot cartomancy society and the first Egyptian cartomancy tarot deck were created by a Jean-Baptiste Alliette, or Atalia as he was pronounced, or Atalia. And this form of divination at that time was referred to as a book of eternal medicine. Now, the first cartomancer, as they were known centuries ago, to upper class society was a Mademoiselle Marie Anne Lenormand. Now, there are plenty Lenormand or Lenormand decks today that you may find, and that's spelled Lenormand. I will, if I'm able to, I will list the name down here on the bottom part of the screen. So you may find decks that are called Lenormand decks of tarot cards, but she is recognized as the first individual to use tarot cards in the form of divination to what was known as high society back in the day. Now, the mage or mages, which you may find in modern TV shows and movies, the mage is the person in movies that have an older setting, like a Victorian era setting or Viking era setting. You'll hear of the mage, who is the person who is typically using occult for either healing or for solving problems. That individual will be assigned to the court or to the castle or to the royalty of that area, and that will be their healer, etc. And that person, several centuries ago, was known to use tarot cards sometimes as their form of divination, or as a tool to assist in their other means of divination. In the late 1800s, that was the intro of tarot to the English-speaking world. There is a tarot deck that is known and widely recognized within the tarot community as the oldest universally recognized tarot deck, and that's the Rider-Waite tarot deck. That is, it was first published in 1909, and it was published by William Rider and Son of London. Now, that tarot deck is still used today. It's considered the most traditional of tarot decks, and it became public domain for various artists and deck creators to use the imagery from those specific cards in 1966. There's a specific term with regard to copyright laws, and once you pass a certain time frame, depending on the country of publication, once you reach a certain time frame beyond the original artist or publisher's death, then the product becomes public domain. So the Rider-Waite tarot deck became public domain in approximately 1966 for most countries. And now if you look online, you can get a Rider-Waite tarot deck anywhere. Now, I would recommend, and that would be everywhere you can get a tarot deck. I would recommend doing your due diligence as far as reading reviews, because sometimes the printing can be off because whoever is doing the printing is just mass producing the tarot decks. So it's important to make sure that you check your sources to ensure that you're getting what would be considered a true replica, and one that is as close to the original as possible. And that's if you choose to include a Rider-Waite tarot deck in your collection. I would recommend, if you're someone who is a tarot enthusiast, someone who feels called to use tarot as a divination method, someone who already uses tarot or is just curious, if you are interested in purchasing tarot decks, I personally will recommend getting a Rider-Waite tarot deck just to have in your arsenal. It was my first tarot deck, and I will include a link to the unboxing that I did up above. But yes, I definitely would recommend that. So that is the history. And I will say that ever since the Rider-Waite Tarot deck was widely made accessible in the early 1900s, that now you can find so many different types of tarot decks. There are oracle decks. I typically use my energy oracle deck, and my favorite tarot deck right now is my modern witch tarot deck. There are themed tarot decks that they typically will follow the same card setup as far as the major and minor arcana go, but just a different theme as far as the imagery goes. There are tarot decks that have true abstract imagery, and it takes one learning about the cards and really educating yourself on the cards to understand what each one represents. There are tarot decks that represent different cultures, and yeah, so I mean, it's like the sky's the limit now. So I hope that this video has been helpful regarding the history of tarot, and please stay tuned for upcoming videos about the major and minor arcana, as well as different types of decks. Okay? Peace. Ashe.